welcome to Carefree Hobbies. We are proud to bring back some seminars. I hope in the near future we're going to have, I've got about 5 or 6 kind of good ones lined up, kind of what I did at when I used to work at North Star back in the 2000s and late 90s. Basic airbrushing was probably one of the most popular classes because it kind of takes away a lot of the apprehension, let's call it that, of airbrushing. And then we're going to do an advanced airbrushing. We'll do modeling 101, just from like an A to Z on model building. We do a figure painting one. I have a young guy who's honestly going to be a world-class painter, and really quite interesting. He came as an 8-year-old with his dad to take figure painting when I did it at North Star Hobbies.
Right.
And he's 30 now, and he's almost he will be a world-class painter. He's already a gold medal painter.
Wow.
So he's going to do basic figure painting. So he's kind of taken over, which is kind of neat. So we've got a lot of neat things kind of up and coming. I've got the possibility of doing a 3D printing seminar. We're thinking about bringing in a 3D printer, but there's a couple of guys that are exceptionally good at it, and we're looking at kind of incorporating that into a class too. But Airbrushing 101 is honestly the meat and potatoes, because I think that when it's just an absolute joy to hear people still come in and they'll go, "You're the guy that taught me airbrushing like in '98," and I'm like, Okay. And you know, to see them still modeling and to see them still enjoying modeling, that's kind of what really makes me happy. So so now we have this environment of a classroom in Carefree. It's a perfect venue, and I hope to kind of continue that forward. So let's get kind of started. I've always started with the same premise of airbrushing, and I know Mark here has heard this, and airbrushing is based on 5 rules, okay? Which is quite surprising. Only 5.
Only?
Yeah, really. Only 5.
Only 5.
So, you have number 1, clean. Number 2, clean. 3, clean.
I see a pattern.
There's a pattern. Clean. And the 5th rule, clean.
Real well.
And then you kind of have a bracket and have fun. And if you keep to those rules, your airbrushing is going to be super easy. Super easy. That's it. The most basic things of airbrushing. I can't overemphasize it, and it's really weird because when I do this class, I think people walk away and they will come back after time and they'll kind of say, "I still clean my airbrush." But what I like about that is they'll come back and say, "But I love airbrushing." And I have a gentleman that just bought an airbrush maybe 2-3 months ago, and he came in the other day and he was like, "I can't believe how much I enjoy it." He paints model cars, and he just started back, and he's probably in late 60s, and he goes, he just absolutely, and he showed me pictures of the work he's doing, and I was like, I gotta admit, that looks really good. And he goes, "But I clean my airbrush, Tom."
Yeah.
And so I think that's, if you can take that out of this, I think that's the most important thing. That you walk away and you know that there's no mystery behind an airbrush. There's none at all. So what we're going to do is, let me just shut this off for a minute. So we're going to go through some basics, which I think is fundamentally good for everybody. A lot of people, and I don't mean this, I mean this kind of honestly, it can be confusing because the internet, and I know I do this spiel too about the internet, and I can't thank Robert here from Barbican enough because the things he offers to everybody on his YouTube channel, which will be linked to our website and things like that. He offers so many good things over the years to modelers in Canada and around the world. The internet has been a great thing. It really is. I gotta admit. I'm not the biggest guy in all the sports betting commercials, but there's other sides of the internet that are amazing. But what I say to people regarding getting their information about modeling online is it's like anything. You have to kind of have to pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bad because generally I always have the opinion of, unless I can see your work, because I know my work, and I've been blessed because I have been, I've done work for collectors, I've done museum work, I've done stuff for TV, movies. Modeling's been something in my life since I was 8. That being said, the internet has opened wonderful doors for people. But you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Because I had another gentleman the other day walk in and want me to fix his airbrush. And he says, yeah, but I saw online and this guy chopped this with a bandsaw and he wanted to kind of use JB Weld to put a fixture onto, and I'm like, whoa, time out here, time out. I said, Pash designed something like that 100 years ago for a reason, and it works. So whatever guy you're watching in like Indiana or something that takes it and chops it and cut it, that's really, I don't understand it. He's like, so the internet is, you have to kind of take, but there's a ton of good people online that you can reference, especially with airbrushing. But I find that the best way to do it is just to take bits and pieces of information here, there, and apply it to yourself. What will make your painting better? What will make your modeling better? And it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And observing just keep the 5 rules that I use, and I think that I've developed, and I think you're going to be fine. So, and it's so easy because rule number 3,
clean.
Yeah, see, that's it. Rule number 2,
clean.
That's it. So where you get that is, we're going to go through the basics here. This is my day-to-day airbrush. It's an Iwata. It's an HP CH Plus. And we'll pass it around in a minute. I personally, you're going to see the Iwata banner because we have a really good relationship with Iwata here at Carefree. We're one of the premier dealers of Iwata. So the other good thing too is I've serviced them for 20 plus years. I don't really want to say one brand is better than the other because that's just not what I'm trying to kind of say. But you gotta admit, Iwata's perfected the airbrush for parts availability, for servicing, for quality. Like this is a 20-plus-year-old airbrush. I have just replaced, and I'll pass it around. I've replaced a few parts on it here and there, but some nights this airbrush I'm holding in my hand, I've shot 6 or 7 colors with it in a night.
Looks brand new.
Yeah, and that's watching a hockey game. So you'll see how easy it is. It's like shoot. Clean, shoot,
Clean.
That's it. Shoot,
Clean.
That's it. And so you're going to find how quickly the airbrush will be the best tool you can have. And I like Iwata because if something goes wrong, the parts are always available and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that Pash and Badger and, they're great airbrushes too. But I like the fact that anything that Iwata makes generally, they're kind of like I don't want to say the Toyota Corolla, but they're just indestructible. And you can just keep using the airbrush and never be frustrated. So yeah, anything we do here at Carefree. I also, in cleaning and servicing airbrushes, I also have a tool that I use to sharpen the needles. So if you ever bring me a needle or something like that, Every time I service an airbrush here, I'll sharpen the needle, re-lubricate it, and when you put all that together, you find it's like a car, right? Everything functions properly. You're gonna have no problem at all, right?
And they have a really wide range of.
They do, and that's another good point. We'll talk about that. The other misconception is you have to spend a ton of money, and you really don't. Mark brought his airbrush a couple of weeks back, and it's one of the budget kind of conscious Iwatas, the Neo, but he has the Neo with the trigger like the TR, and it sprays beautifully. And it's easy to maintain, and so that's the other good thing about Iwata. Like when you look at the range of what they have now, price point wise, you have price points that are quite are very appealing to most people, and you can go right up to a custom micron, like which I have too, which is like $1,200. Now, the beauty of an airbrush in the right hands. And when the airbrush rule number like 5, clean. So when the airbrush is clean and serviced properly, the difference between this airbrush and a custom micron is minimal in the right hands. So yes, the custom micron is the absolute best airbrush out there, but are you going to see a really noticeable difference in painting that? Absolutely not. So again, and we'll go through that because I have an airbrush here which is the grandfather of all airbrushes. It's still available for like $100, and some of the best model builders in the world still use it, and it's like $100. So we'll go through that. So the two basics that we're going to go through, the fundamentals of the airbrush. And we're going to just talk briefly of the differences between single action, double action, and all the different feeds and things like that. So when I go on about cleaning, kind of the story I use is I guess my career. I was a Toronto firefighter and a captain, and when people go by and they see a fire truck and it shoots down the road and it's clean and things like that, you think, wow, but we keep things clean for a reason. It's not because of an appearance, which is kind of also an image that we like to maintain, but our equipment, everything we do is clean and serviceable.
And ready for use.
Yeah, and that's exactly why. So it's some guy, you wrap your car around a pole at 4 a.m. and we pull out all that heavy equipment like the Jaws of Life and stuff like that. We don't have the liberty to say, I don't think whoa, that's dirty. Let's see if we can get some of that. It's not working properly. We have to be ready to go like that. Now, is an airbrush like that? No. But if you kind of use that, this is my tool also now. Like this is this is the tool of my trade. I still model daily. I still build for people and collectors and stuff like that. For I'm doing a book article now for something. So this is still a tool of my trade now. So it kind of leads into that. The minute that this thing doesn't work, it adds up to frustration, and all the normal things. So the cleaner it is, the more functional, the more serviceable it is, I think you're going to be a much happier modeler. So that's why I really emphasize keeping it clean and keeping it serviceable. So we'll jump right into the differences here. So the two basic kinds we know. A lot of times, outside of the internet, there's some really good stuff out there. And don't discount things like this. Fine Skill Modeler. Airbrushing Secrets. I would still rather take this magazine than kind of watch somebody I don't know, when they're trying to tell you to cut an airbrush and, or some of the other crazy things I've seen, you can kind of mix cooking oil and, no. But something like this is a super, super good reference. And I to be honest, I still read the stuff. Like when Fine Scale prints it, I will still read it. And I look at it and I think it's a great little reference piece for your bench. To have that beside you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So let's go through the very basics of what we're going to go through. 2 types, basically. Single action, double action. The granddaddy of airbrushes was a single action airbrush. This is a Pash H. Why was it designed? Pretty simple. Mainly its job was that of photo retouching back in the day. Way before computers, way before anything. Everything we did, every time a picture was taken, it was retouched. So they could airbrush something out, so this airbrush, probably going on, let's call it 100 years. If I was a betting guy, I think it's probably about 100 years old now. It's an absolute flawless design. Still available. If somebody says to me, the Pash H is, it's old, it's this, it's that, it's like, whoa. This thing with a fine needle will still go down to, I can take it down to a pencil line. Easily. But if I put the wide needle on, you can use it to do a model railroad layout the size of this table. And you can still, with a larger jar, you can just paint away, right? The flexibility in this thing is tremendous. One of the top airplane builders in the world lives here in Toronto. There's a lot of them. He has worked in the Smithsonian. When you're kind of that high in the food chain of building, that's pretty, you're in rarefied air when you're doing stuff for the Smithsonian in Washington. This is still the choice of his airbrush. Actually, he came about a month ago and he rated all my parts. Because I always keep, when people bring stuff in or I buy collections, if there's a Pash H, I always take it. Because we can use it for parts, right? And he had a field day because I gave him a whole whack of parts for it.
Oh, yeah.
Still uses it. So it's a great airbrush. So when I say single action, it's only got one action, which is pushing down for air. That's it. This is a single action, externally mixed airbrush, and it's siphon feed. So the air and the paint are mixed at the very tip, and then this is siphoned. So a cup is held here, or a jar, and the paint is drawn up into the cone, into the needle. That's the cone, and then it is externally mixed at the end. Your adjustment point is using the cone, and it has only one action for your finger, which is single, for pushing down air. Yeah. So once you establish what your line is, or what your line that you will be painting, it's a great airbrush. Does it have any down points? I'm going to say absolutely not. It's a tremendous airbrush. So again, single action, external mixed, siphon fed. Okay, so that's the Pash H. Then we move to the Badger 200. Again, incredible airbrush. I think I bought this one 30 years ago for probably $30. Wow. Again, this has a small cup. This is a gravity fed airbrush. So again, single action, one function for pushing down for air. Internally mixed. So this is called a gravity fed airbrush. So that cup is held, the paint is held in that cup, and it's fed through gravity into the body of the airbrush, and it's mixed inside, internally mixed, right? The adjustment point for your line is at the end. So you establish your pattern at the end, right? Again, how good is this airbrush? Honestly, it's a tremendous airbrush. And again, if you had to replace this airbrush now, it's $80. So again, when people come in and they'll say, well, I need the best airbrush you have. And I'm like, whoa, slow down here. Because depending on what you're going to use it for. So do I still use this airbrush? Absolutely. Because man, again, when you mix paint properly, this airbrush will go down to a technical pencil. It's that good. And very simple. a very simple airbrush to use, right? So again, single action, gravity fed, internally mixed, okay? Then you get into the other side of airbrushing, which is double action, meaning 2 actions, okay? This is Tamiya. This one is made by Tamiya, the same company that builds models. Truth be known, their high-grade airbrushes are all done by Iwata. But again, they're done to Tamiya specifications. Beautiful airbrush for the money. Double action. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on. The double action means that I'm pushing down for air and I'm pulling back for paint. So all the action is based on two motions, pushing down for air and drawing back for paint. My spray pattern will be how the proximity of the airbrush versus what I'm painting is. It's internally mixed, and again, this is gravity fed. So the paint goes into the cup, it goes down into the body, it's internally mixed, and then comes out the end. And your adjustment is basically done by your finger and the proximity, okay?
How do you get consistency between, like, so?
A very super good question.
Okay.
A lot of them you can adjust the travel of the needle, so that kind of locks into your painting.
Okay.
There's a couple of things. Control is one. The thing about airbrushing, the whole fundamental of what you're gonna find is based on 5 things.
Keeping it clean.
Keeping it clean. If it's not clean, that's where you start running into problems. So when you're talking about consistency of when you're trying to, like, your consistency of painting, it's kind of like a chain of events. Because if your airbrush is clean, that's your first strike, good strike, right? Proper paint mixing is your second thing. So we're going to talk about paint mixing and then air delivery. So if you have a good consistent air delivery, that is also going to kind of affect that. So if you have all those things together, like you have, your airbrush is clean and serviceable right there and then you're mixing your paint to proper ratios, and then you have good air delivery, then everything else kind of comes into play, right? Because air delivery, again, is air delivery more important than cleaning? Not really, but they all work in sync. Because if you have a blockage in your airbrush that because of whatever, and don't get me wrong, like, it happens to me still all the time. Like, I'll take an airbrush, and this is my day-to-day airbrush. I'll take that airbrush, and I'll be like, why isn't this working? It could be the smallest bit of paint in the flow nozzle, kind of back in the body. Who knows? So we all, none of us are immune to that. And trust me, there's more times I paint. I had to do something the other day. A gentleman wanted to come and kind of privately, do something with an airbrush. So I thought, I'll take the opportunity to paint something for me, right? Because I had something I had to do. And I took some Gen 3s, some AK Gen 3, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm Mr. Cool here, and I've done this all the time, and I had the parts, and I had my Gen 3, and I had the thinner for it. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I can do this. Customer's here, and had a great little session with the customer. So then I stirred the Gen 3, put it in here, put some Gen 3 thinner in. 9 out of 10 times it'll paint beautifully. Well, this was the 10th time it didn't. And it's.
Thanks for showing that.
Thanks for coming. I like that. Thanks for coming. It spat, farted, and hacked all at the same time.
No.
And I'm like, oh, that's good. It flew back. It blew back. So, and then I don't know what happened. I tried, once I got the thing painted, and I was kind of embarrassed. Like, to somebody watching, they think, oh, wow, that looks really good. The paint look, because it was kind of painting like a civilian tractor, 35th scale. But I'm using a bright orange. It's like a Case tractor from the 40s.
Yeah, right.
It's bright orange. To the average person, it went on beautifully. But I'm looking at it going, oh, what a disaster. And then I went to clean the airbrush after, and it was just the paint. It was like watching a toddler eat. Like the paint was all over the place, and yeah. So we all have those days, and that's what I want to emphasize. Like we all have those experiences where you're gonna paint, and it may not be your best day. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to problem solve a bit and everything else. So.